This is The Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Tia Graham. Trust in major news organizations is at an all-time low. According to a 2024 Gallup poll that has tracked trust in media for over 50 years, it says 30% of people said they do not trust mass media. Only 6% said they lack trust in the media when the survey was taken in the early 70s. But the poll only tells part of the story. Danielle Brown is professor of journalism at Michigan State University. When she asked Black communities in states like Michigan if they trusted the media or news, she uncovered a narrative that's more complex. Kerry Jr. II spoke with Professor Brown to learn more about how and why trust in media is changing and how the industry can work better with communities.
Okay, Professor Brown, according to a Gallup poll you cite in your article, trust in mass media is trending down. Is news and journalism getting something wrong?
Journalism has done things wrong before. That's no doubt about that. They have reported things inadequately. They have helped parrot some power systems and at the detriment of some communities and people. But one of the challenges now with trust in news is not just what historically has been done, but also what all the other systems of news and information have done as well. And so it's a more complex question today, and it has many more influences than when Gallup started asking that poll back in the 60s.
So what does your research suggest is happening today?
In my research, what I find over and over and over again is that there's usually an avenue of trust. There's usually one journalist or one person or one space that they go to where their trust still exists and it still lives and it still thrives, and they cling to it with all of their might. And so journalism has challenges, and it does a lot of things wrong in terms of how it represents some issues, in terms of what it focuses on and what it doesn't, in terms of how long it focuses on things, and then when it decides to just shift to the next thing. And that's the nature of journalism, and that
Sure.
can frustrate people for sure. But trust in journalism still exists. It just doesn't exist as a whole entity.
You surveyed Black Midwesterners. Why did you want to focus on that population?
I was a researcher who focused almost exclusively on the representation of social movements in journalism. And then I was moving to Minneapolis, Minnesota in the first week of June in 2020 when there's protests everywhere after the murder of George Floyd. And it gave me an opportunity to see how the media worked in a space that I now lived, in a community that I was now a part of. What I found and heard and experienced and lived through is just like the frustration of the community and how much these incomplete narratives harmed not just their information systems, but their actual trust in all of the power systems that created their community. The solutions that I had, that scholars had, that journalists had, didn't seem to be working. And so I started surveying communities there to ask them, well, what could we do to make this better? And that sort of is how these initial surveys started and then evolved over time to capture more of the experiences of Black Midwesterners around, the Great Lakes.
What did they tell you?
In Minneapolis, what they told me were things like, we want to see us on the front page. There's more stories about dogs and puppies and pets than there is about Black people experiencing joy and doing good things in the city. They said things like, I really wish that person who had left, the journalist who had left, would come back. There's a lot of fascination and fixation on what was done in the past and how it affects the present. A lot of people didn't even read the news because of what had happened in the past and how it affects the present. And so a lot of their solutions were, I wish you would show up for me. I wish you would listen to me. I wish you would spend more time thinking about what you've done. I wish you'd apologize for the things that you've done in the past. I wish you'd be more critical of the sources, the official sources that they were regularly using. And I wish you would know that I won't ever pick up that paper again. I think that was one of the more devastating things that I heard, is that I'm not coming back. And actually, that made sense to me. People who don't trust an institution and have found a new pathway for information, why would you want them to go back to this place that they haven't trusted? And so once I found out that was sort of the sentiment in Minnesota, I wanted to see if that was the sentiment in multiple places and spaces, or if this was unique to that particular area. And I think it does resonate in different spots around the Midwest.
Did you find that the concerns that people were expressing about the media was actually also in the media that was available to them?
Available and what they actually used are two kind of different things. So we audited coverage of these media systems and looked at how representation patterns sort of played out. And there's still many challenges that came out of traditional journalism that would frustrate community members. But we also audited some of the information that came from other spaces that they pulled information from. So things like social media, people that they got information from. We tried to figure out, like, if you trusted a particular individual over an institution, for example, what are they talking about? What information did they get, and how adequate and objective is their information. Mm-hmm. And it faces some of the challenges that people use to critique journalism, for sure.
Earlier you said that people found alternative pathways to news and information. Are there other avenues through which people get their information?
Let me get a little nerdy with you real quick.
Sure.
A lot of times we think that journalism goes directly to our communities. That's like the idea, is that for example, we have this story and it's going to go directly to everybody in the community and everybody's going to listen to it. And, ideally that is the point, but that's actually not how it's ever really been. News is a luxury. There's only a few people who are going to listen this far. Even here, news is a luxury. News takes time. You have to have time to listen to the news. You have to have this moment to want to go into depth about whatever particular topic it is. It has to matter to you. You can't be working, overtime 80 hours a week and think that people are going to enjoy, a nice full paper every day. And so in political communication, what we've known for a long time is that news actually trickles down to just a few of the elites, and we call these like opinion leaders. Usually there's a two-step flow to news. So we get information, it goes to that core group of privileged people who have time to process information. And then a group of those people actually pass it down to other people. So that used to be literally like your preacher would get up at the pulpit and then say something that was in the news and provide that information to you. And so they re-select and re-gatekeep and redistribute that news to a broader public in a space where they do have time. And so part of this news process is not just what journalism does up at the top, but also what these intermediary people who have these luxuries of being able to get news and process news and think about news and be tuned into news. I say luxury, but also it's a job, right? People do it for different reasons, but those people become really, really important in the news distribution process and also the news creation process. And as social media and different spaces have offered people even more power to distribute things, that's where it gets a little more complex to just say, like, why do people not trust journalism anymore? Well, because it's being filtered in so many different ways from so many different people and spaces, and people really generally only have access to that top journalism every once in a while. The general public only gets journalism every once in a while when they absolutely need it, when they absolutely can make time for it. That is part of what makes this discussion so complicated and hard to follow, and why there's so many avenues for thinking about trust in media and why communities struggle with it.
The trust is not simply defined by how an individual feels. It's about what the individual receives.
Right.
And the fact that it's received through all these different avenues, filtered through all these different avenues, it colors the way that they perceive journalism as a whole.
Yes.
You're listening to The Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Kerry Jr. II. My guest is Danielle Brown. She is a professor of journalism at Michigan State University We are discussing the trust Black people in the Midwest have in news and media. Professor Brown, did you find anything specific to Black people in Michigan?
In Michigan, we found that people still have trust in news, though, and there's across the board significant trust in Black journalists that literally happens in every city I've been to. These identity-based characteristics. There's a care and an ethic that draws people closer to Black journalists or Black communities to Black journalists, and so they're still gravitating towards journalism in some spaces for some things. For Black communities, Black journalists, even if they exist, even if they have careers that are in spaces they don't trust. So if they didn't trust the paper, the local newspaper, they might still trust the Black journalist that is there. And it sort of supersedes, the individual supersedes what the institutional lack of trust is.
Did they ever in the survey express why that is, why they separate the individual from the institution?
Well, we went and asked the individuals why they think that is.
Not the community themselves, but the people who are trusted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did additional surveys of trusted messengers and how they engage differently, like trying to figure out what makes you different. Why did they say your name? And oftentimes we find that these are people who have spent more time in those communities, who have been more willing to provide like a diligent embeddedness in a community. They defer to the norms and culture of a particular community, and they give them the respect that they need. This ethic of care is really what helps people become trusted in spaces that lack trust.
What about academics or researchers such as yourself, experts we call them? They're people that we speak to as journalists to get information about topics. Where does the community perceive experts, researchers in terms of news and information sources?
Well, it's really interesting. In our surveys, we asked that, and experts are kind of middle of the road. People don't really know what to make of us. We don't have an overwhelming amount of trust, but we don't have an overwhelming amount of distrust. We kind of sit in a middle ground, which is kind of good. So the way I read that is like people have a healthy amount of skepticism for us.
What are examples of publications that are getting it right?
You could look at the Black press, for example, and the trust that communities have for the Black press. You could look at Spanish language newspapers and the trust that those communities have for those newspapers because they know they're oriented towards serving them. Specifically, they know that the people who are writing for them understand who this is for. They reprioritize information for that group. They're not doing a general catch-all for everyone. This is information specifically for you. We're going to put it in your language. And I think that those relationships should be explored more because they are the kinds of relationships that I think that mainstream media has been saying they wanted to build all along.
The takeaway is for people like me who are in media, who work as journalists, to understand how to make the most impact with the work that we do. I'm curious if there's a takeaway for the general public.
What I try to do is connect both the public and the media and let them know that like these things work together. The general public needs the media. This is an information system. It's not perfect. The general public, I really encourage them to try to engage with media in different ways, but also to be skeptical of what that second set of news and information providers are. The scary thing about trust, there's a flip side to trust that we don't talk about enough, and that flip side is that if you trust people, you tend to not question them. You tend to take their information and process it as it's been told to you. You use it in your life. And so when I tell my partner, for example, I trust you, I don't go to his phone afterwards, right? And the trust is a little bit, we don't actually want people to do that with media. We want you to keep reading more. We want you to find out more about what's happening in local politics. We want you to ask questions. Journalists need you to ask questions so that we know what to report on, right? And so blindly trusting any news and information provider is a little bit of a problematic step. And I would tell the general public that none of these entities are perfect. And all of them should be treated with a healthy sense of skepticism so that you can make sure you use your own brain to be informed about all of the things and come to your own conclusions.
From our perspective, we want the trust, but it sounds like from the public's perspective, you should not rely on the trust.
You shouldn't rely on the trust.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure I understood this. For a second, I was like, wait a minute, does this mean it's not a good thing that they trust Black journalists, but it's still a good thing? All
trusted media and information pathways will have problems. Challenges with representation. It is part of what makes the news the news. It's filtered. It's only the most important information. It's selected on a time basis. It's only who was available. There's voices that are left out. All of these things are happening, and we want people, ideally, an educated citizenry questions the information that they have and asks for more. Right? That's how you build a knowledge base.
How can we ensure that people do that?
I think this is a citizenry question. Do we educate people enough in our country to have them process information like the news is providing with them and think about it critically? And that's on them.
I appreciate you swinging by and breaking this all down for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Danielle Brown is a professor of journalism at Michigan State University. She surveyed Black Midwesterners about their trust in media and news. Coming up, a publication in Detroit wants to bring new voices and perspectives to the world of high fashion. Stay right there. We'll be right back. This is The Metro.